Elul is a month-long holiday, or Hol month, that marks the end of one Jewish year and helps to transition into the beginning of a new one. Traditionally, it is a month of introspection, contemplation, and personal growth. Untraditionally, or at least less traditionally, Elul Unbound is a digital initiative offering up a wide variety of avenues for experimenting over the course of this month. Sign up to join Elul Unbound's email list and learn more about all of Elul Unbound's offerings by heading to judaismunbound.com/ELUL. This is a special bonus edition of Judaism Unbound. Elul Unbound number 19, Bet on It. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Lex Rofberg.
And I'm Wendy Bernstein-Lash.
We are so excited to be here. We're so excited to have our second Elul Unbound bonus episode of 2023. And that is really important. I paused on second. I soaked it in because last week we talked all about how we are in the second year of the 7-year Shemitah cycle and how that is a great chance to meditate a little bit on the value of seconds in our lives. So the time length seconds, second meaning when we repeat things and how we might do a better job of holding our enthusiasm even when we're doing something the second time and not just the first time. All of that was what we talked about last week. And now here we are modeling a second by doing our second bonus episode. So I'm really jazzed about that. And before we dive into today's theme, which is, spoiler alert, another second, but in a different sense, Wendy, you are teaching an Elul Unbound course. You're teaching a 3-week mini course that people can sign up for. And I would love to hear a little bit from you about what that is and remind folks that in addition to these podcasts, there are chances to learn with us, to be on our email list, all that. And one of those is this mini course. And so, Wendy, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. I love that you used that we're going to soak in this because I feel like the mini course is about soaking in Elul, getting more time to steep in it and really draw it into your life and utilize it and have fun with it and play with it. So we're going to be looking at the spiritual practices of Elul and inviting people to come up with their own Elul practice with support and encouragement from one another. And so I hope you will join us. We've gotten some lovely signups and with still room for more. Would love to have you in the class.
Absolutely. It's going to be spectacular. There's great content, but you get to hang out with Wendy 3 times in this course. There's other moments that you can hang out with Wendy and me and with Micah, our program associate at Judaism Unbound, and that's our Friday Elul gatherings. Those are a little less formalized than Wendy's class. Both are really, really awesome. But at our Friday gatherings, we had our first one this past week. It was super, super amazing. And we are going to be having 3 more. And so keep an eye out for your email inbox about the specific times each of the coming Fridays, but you should totally come and hang. That's a little bit of housekeeping about the amazing opportunities you have outside of this podcast to connect to Elul yourself with others. Now, we want to dive into today's theme, which is one word, but it's also one letter. It's mostly one syllable that can mean many different things. And that syllable is bet, which means things in English, and it means things in Hebrew. I'm also going to say it as base. We'll talk about why in a second. What is a bet? What is a base? Why is it so exciting to talk about that syllable in this second year of the Shemitah cycle and this Elul Unbound, all about soaking into our seconds, our repetitions, our continuations of what came before?
I love it. Bet is 2. If you look at the letters of the Hebrew alphabet and you give them each a number, it is the number 2. As we said in the last episode, it's the first letter in the Torah. It can mean in or of or on. So it's got these multiple layers of meaning. And so we have this sense of this very important letter, the second letter in the Hebrew alphabet, and it's inviting us in.
Yeah, and it's funny because my guess is if people listen to this in juxtaposition to all our episodes last year where we talked about firsts, things might feel like we're contradicting ourselves. Because last year we were like, oh, when things start, that's so special, and nothing is quite the same as when something kicks off for the first time. And that's really important. And Elul Unbound episodes. Now we're saying the second. That's where the real magic is. The bet is the second letter of the alphabet, and it's what starts the Torah. There's actually really interesting mystical teachings about why the bet sort of won the conquest to be the first letter in the alphabet, even though it is second in the order. I think that there doesn't need to be a contradiction there. We can hold the magic of both the kickoffs and the seconds, the continuations. I love the letter bet. I always love that when you look at it in Hebrew, it's like a little bracket. So it's, if you're looking at it where the right side of the letter is kind of a wall, it's like open space to its left, and it looks like a bracket in English, and it looks like what you would start a line of Hebrew with. It's like, a little bracket over here, and now we'll fill it in with the rest. That's the b, that's the bet. Not only does the Torah start with the letter bet, but almost all ketubas, almost all Jewish wedding documents, they start with b, whatever. They say like on the third day of Shabbat. They actually talk about each of the days of the week as like within Shabbat, but on the first day of Shabbat or on Shabbat or whatever it is. But the b is the on there. It's this commencer of a lot of things, even though it is the second, and that's cool. But I want to sit with bet the letter, and in addition to that, I want to sit with bet, or maybe base, the word, because the glorious thing about Hebrew letters is most of the words for letters actually have a meaning. In English, like if I asked you what H means or what K means, I guess K has like, okay, but if I ask you what L means, L doesn't really mean anything. But in Hebrew, lamed is a word for teaching. It means all sorts of things. Base, it means house, which is really interesting. And it means house via the word bait that you also pronounce as base, which now we get to come back to English and say, isn't that cool that our house, our bayit, can be pronounced, depending on which groups of Jews and which lineages, as a base, like a structure that holds us up. That's what a house is. It's meant to be a structure that holds us up like a base, an anchor. And so all of that is kind of contained in this bet, in this base. And so I kind of want to hear from you, Wendy. You are a grounded person in many forms of anchoring, many forms of base. How does that letter bet speak to you?
I love that idea of thinking about it as a base, the place that you come back to and you rejuvenate. The thing itself is not what, well, it is important, your house, your base or whatever, but that you're doing something in it. And the fact that bet or base is on what's being done inside of us for Elul as we prepare for Rosh Hashanah. That's what's important. It's not the external, I'm doing this to look good or because this is what you're supposed to do, but it's this internal journey of what are you doing? What's moving in you? What do you need to look at? That all fits in this idea of base, bet, house, a place, a container where we get to do something, and that something is unique to each of us.
100%. Yeah. I also want to throw in another layer of how bet is used. If you go through the list of the names of books in the Tanakh, in the Hebrew Bible, if you were saying them in Hebrew, things that we say in English, we'll say like, 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel. In Hebrew, it's Shmuel Aleph, Shmuel Bet. We translate that as 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, but it's that continuation. If you read Samuel, it's not really two separate books. And I think there's a way in which Bet represents the continuation of something that came before. And that's what it is in terms of the year. If we're in year Bet, and if we're approaching year Bet here in Elul, we're not there yet. We want to be, we're anticipating, but there's a way in which we want to experience year Bet as a new beginning, as a chance to start over. And there's a way in which we want to experience it as sort of a next level, a continuation of year Aleph in the Shemitah cycle. Hopefully we had, intentions, something we wanted to sit with in our lives, in our communities that first year, and we're allowing it to grow. So that's another way that bet operates. And the other thing I wanted to bring out, this is not a bet, but it is a a Sheni that we've been sitting with last week and this week. There's this idea in the Torah, it says if you can't celebrate Passover for a certain set of reasons, if you're on the road, if you're not able to mark it in a certain set of ways, you get a do-over. A month later, you get to mark Passover. It's called Pesach Sheni, second Passover. Wendy, I know you have a lot of thoughts about that. So this Pesach Sheni idea, second Passover, but maybe how we could apply it beyond just that.
I was first introduced, there's also another concept of Katan, which means little. And so we have, the big Yom Kippur, and I was introduced to Yom Kippur Katan, which I had never heard about, which actually you can celebrate at the beginning of every month. And it's like, well, we don't have to wait a whole year. So there could be here's the second one in case you didn't do the first. And there can also be like, well, we need little bumps. We need little pushes to keep going, to keep the energy going. And so that idea of you have one Yom Kippur, but you can every month do a little Yom Kippur so that you don't have to let it build up. It's not, okay, I did it, I'm done. We have this sense of we continue to grow, that there are opportunities to continue to evolve. We don't have to do it one time and we brush our hands and I'm done. I did that. I can check it off the list. It's like, oh, no. I get to keep looking at it and how am I growing and evolving? How am I being invited to be wiser than I was a year ago, a month ago? And so that's all part of this idea of these extras, these continuations of the holidays, of the seasons.
I love what you're identifying there, that we have a whole slew of different examples of, I don't know, it's just a recognition that sometimes holidays don't work for us. I think that's so cool. Whether it's Yom Kippur, whether it's Passover, we have multiple examples. Purim also there's a Purim Katan. There's multiple examples of how we actually are pretty pragmatic and say, okay, yeah. We've got these holidays and they should be awesome. But sometimes it's not going to connect. Whether it's because you're traveling and you're not able to eat the Paschal sacrifice that you're supposed to eat or whatever, or because you need to split some of the energies of Yom Kippur that can be intense into smaller bite-sized components in the way that you were talking about. There's an understanding that sometimes the holidays, the frameworks, our liturgies, our aspirations, they're a starting point, and then we fit it to where it needs to be fit in our lives. I wanted to name, so we've been using the word continuation. The second year is, in a certain sense, is a continuation of the first year. I have been careful, and Wendy and I actually talked about this before. We've both been careful to not use the word continuity, which in a certain sense might be the most intuitive word to talk about the continuation, the continuity of something over time. Because the word continuity has a lot of layers, mostly about reproductive continuity, and it's tied to a lot of harmful, oppressive kinds of norms in Jewish life. So we haven't used continuity. But I also, I want to use that as a moment to check in with ourselves and be okay, there's a lot of reasons why being unthoughtful about how we go about continuing Jewish things, Jewish people, Jewish peoplehood, we need to be careful about how we talk about just the continuation of those things, because often that's used to stomp down new ideas because, that's not continuity. That's something newfangled and that's not authentic. And we're not anti-continuations. We're not. We want to be part of ongoing threads of Jewishness, of Judaism that continue from the past. It's just that as we do so, we're sensitive and aware and excited about the fact that those continuations often also incorporate new ideas and are not just a replication of the past. To continue something is not to maintain its entire makeup exactly as is. It is often to add a new layer, to bring in some new element. And so I wanted to name that because if you noticed we haven't said that word continuity in a couple sentences where it would have made sense, that's why.
Just to add to that, frequent listeners of this podcast have heard this before, but Judaism has changed and continues to change. And so we're just in the new, we're in our own place of change here, that the Judaism of 200 years ago doesn't look like today. The Judaism of 500 years ago doesn't look like today. And it shouldn't. That's what keeps it alive, is that it speaks to and has changed to meet the needs, but to bring along maybe this is a place to use continuity, I don't know, but to bring along what is the best of Judaism and to speak to us in these times that we live in, because we don't live in temple times and we don't live in biblical times. So that's just why Judaism is still around and alive and vital, is because it has changed.
Absolutely. And so the last thing I'll say, this is going to lead us into next week's conversation in certain senses, so I won't give all of it. But the word for change, I mean, I keep on bringing up layers to this word shana in Hebrew. And I could imagine somebody saying, Lex, are you just like wildly gesticulating and stretching this root? Because it seems like you're saying 9 million different things are all built on this root. And like, are you just being a rabbi and like saying everything like truly, sincerely, this one root is like a really important central one and does tie to this. I'm not like making words totally stray into new meanings or anything. But so the word for change in Hebrew is shinui. It is, again, built on that notion of shana, of cycle, of year, of second, of repetition. And the word, and if you want to say, I change, mishaneh is the word, is like the shaneh part is what's tied there. And next time, we're going to be talking about other forms of this word that tie to the word mishaneh, like Mishnah. I'm going to leave that as a unspecified connection because you'll hear about it next week. But I'm so excited to continue this journey through the month with all of you. And just as closing reminders, please head to judaismunbound.com/ELUL, where you can find lots of information about Elul Unbound, how you can sign up for our email list, how you can come to our Zoom gatherings, all that good stuff. Sign up for Wendy's amazing course. We've already seen a few signups come in. It is not too late whatsoever. Please go to judaismunbound.com/classes and sign up for her 3-week mini course beginning very, very soon that will lead you right up to Rosh Hashanah. And that's all on the table for how you can enhance your Elul experience. And we hope that you will take us up on that. So thanks so much for listening to this. And with that, this has been Judaism Unbound.